Oh, hi. My name is Ian. This is Finally Chopped Pixels, and I'm not usually in this kind of situation. I know it's been a few weeks since I've posted, but I've been a little bit busy. Don't remember when this happened, but I've had a bit of time to reflect, and so I thought today I could share with you a few lessons I've learned after using Blender for 10 years. Oh, and before we get into that, I just wanted to let you know, if you're interested in learning about visual effects in Blender, I've created a completely free video for you, and in this video I just go over 5 different techniques that'll help you integrate your CG creations into real-life footage. So if that sounds interesting to you, there's a link in the description, so definitely go ahead and check that out. The first lesson is that deadlines can be really helpful for you. Using your own deadlines and setting them in place really forces you to follow through with a project and actually have an end point. And that actually kind of brings me pretty quickly to the second lesson that I've learned. Following through on a project is really important. I know I've ended up with so many incomplete projects throughout the years, and that's all because I haven't followed through. And starting a project is really easy when you get all excited about it, but it's following through that actually gets you the end result that you can be proud of. So, kind of putting deadlines and follow through together, the third lesson that I've learned is that contests can be really helpful for growing as an artist. I know there was one called the CG Weekly Challenge that I did for a long time, and just having every week a new project started, a new project finished, and entering in that contest helped me grow immensely. And, like I mentioned, it kind of combines the deadline and the follow-through. You gotta have a finished product to enter, and there's always an end date to the contest. So that's kind of a fun way to bundle up the first 3 lessons that I've learned, is to just join contests. Now, I think the CG Weekly contest isn't going anymore, or at least it's renamed to the CG Boost contest. I think so. I haven't checked that out in a while. But I think you'll find a pretty cool contest. And they do contests, I think it's like every 2 weeks or every month or something like that. And so you have a lot of chances to try over and over again if you don't get anywhere the first time. And even if you don't win, it's a really good way to just create wonderful art in Blender. Another thing that I've learned throughout the years is that consistency is really important as a Blender artist. If I actually look back at all the work that I've done through the past 10 years, I've done about the same amount of work in the first 8 years as I did in the last 2 years. And the only thing that changed was I was much more consistent throughout the past 2 years. Now the next lesson I learned is to screen record when I'm working on projects. And then after I finish, I just post the screen recording on YouTube. And that's something I did quite a while ago, but the really cool thing about this practice is when you're working on a project, you feel like somebody is watching you. And when you feel like somebody's watching you, you end up being a lot more productive and disciplined, because somebody could be watching you in the future. The next lesson I'm going to share with you that I learned is that YouTube can be really helpful and really unhelpful. Mainly unhelpful because it can be really distracting and easy to get sucked into that rabbit hole. But on the positive side, basically everything that I've learned in Blender, I've learned through YouTube with free tutorials, which is absolutely amazing, and I guess you probably have an idea of how that works since you're watching a tutorial channel. Oh man. Yeah, I guess you probably know that one already. Now we got about 3 more lessons that I've learned, and the next one is that sometimes working in Blender and working in art and working on projects in general just kind of sucks. And it's usually a point maybe a little past midway in a project, or maybe a little bit earlier than midway in a project, where at the start you're very motivated, and then you realize things are going to get kind of hard and hard to work through. And sometimes it just kind of sucks. By the end of the project, usually things have gotten back to a point where you're proud of what you're working on, but to finish, you actually have to push through that middle part where it's just not really fun. And I guess this is kind of similar to follow through, but being aware that a project will eventually kind of suck in the middle of it is the first step to actually pushing through that part. If you're not aware that it's going to be so difficult, that could be extremely discouraging. So just be aware of that and push through it. Now the second to last lesson I want to share with you is that it's really important to learn when your project is good enough. and even when parts of the project are good enough. Because if you don't know when it's good enough, then you keep working on the same part and working and working and working on it, and you never finish it. I guess sometimes this can be identified as perfectionism, and it's kind of a crippling thing, because you never get to work on any other projects if you're always just laser focused on making one project perfect, and you never move on. And the way you learn is by working on lots of different projects. And just to circle back real quick, that's why deadlines are so important, because you have a final end to your project, and you know, well, I can't work on it past this point. So having a deadline is a good way to teach yourself to learn when good enough is, but knowing when something is good enough is just a really excellent skill to have. Now, the very final lesson that I've learned from using Blender for 10 years, and this is a pretty big one, is